Welcome back, Mando.
Oh, greetings, Bucketheads. Mavar Tagar. Welcome to our 311th Gore-Goating Greatness episode of Mandovision. I am your host, Nargai Tom, and thank you so much for checking out this small independent Star Wars podcast. We're so glad you're here. It is, of course, once again, Mandovision After Dark, as we record my reactions and sort of initial thoughts on these next 3 episodes of Andor that just dropped earlier tonight. It is 1:30 in the morning in San Diego as I record this, so it's still fresh. I had to stay up a little bit later than I expected to watch these. Wasn't able to get started until a little later in the evening than I had planned. And that's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes, my friends. But as you contemplate that, remember, follow us on the socials. We're at Mando_Vision, Twitter/X and Insta. Hit me up at Blue Sky, just at Mandovision over on Blue Sky. And you can email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, and share the show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. All right, Bucketheads. So as we've stated, we are here for these next 3 episodes of the second and final season of Andor. And let me tell you, friends, these 3 are intense. It's the powder keg that has been building since day one, since the first episode of this season. Ghorman. Again, we knew this is what we were building to. We knew this was sort of the moment that would ignite everything. It's part of the canon, it's part of the lore. But to now see it canonized, to see it crystallized, to see what it is that the Empire does on Ghorman and how it provokes and inspires a unified rebellion against tyranny is something else. But perhaps even more exciting, more invigorating than seeing the actual massacre itself is the fallout that comes from it, the bravery of Mon Mothma, and we will talk about all these things and more as we sort of react to the 3 episodes that came out tonight. And so before we dive into them a little bit more fully, let's give credit where credit is due. These 3 episodes, directed by Janice Metz, written by Dan Gilroy. And we are, of course, talking about Season 2, Episode 7, Messenger. Season 2, Episode 8, Where Are You? Excuse me, friends, I'm tired. Season 2, Episode 8, Who Are You? A absolutely devastating line in that episode. And we'll talk about that. And then, of course, Episode 9 of Season 2, Welcome to the Rebellion. So good stuff. We're going to dive into it right now. You know what that means. It's time. Strap on your buckets. Let's go.
Get out of here. We'll hold them off. You're going to have to relocate the covert. This is the way. This is the way.
These 3 episodes might be the high point thus far of Season 2 of Andor. Because, again, we're beginning to deliver on all the things that were promised, all the things that have been teased and hinted at, and some things from Season 1 come to a head. The receipts are being counted, if you will. And just magnificent storytelling, magnificent visual direction, well executed, well acted, well scripted, well directed. I mean, these 3 episodes are just chef's kiss. Perfect stuff. Amazing entertainment. I was on the edge of my seat every single episode of this series. Again, as this season has progressed, we move 1 year further into the timeline, and we find our characters in different places, in different situations, in different scenarios. And going back to what we talked about in our sort of compendium episode last week, the relationships are in different places. For Cassian and Bix, it's in a better place. They have a home. They live together on Yavin now. They have a little little bungalow set up in the jungle of Yavin behind the Masasi temples. And it's beautiful, wonderful, and they have this happy life. And it seems like Bix is doing better for herself now that she's gotten her sort of revenge and sort of clear the decks with the elimination of Gorst. She seems to have rounded herself into nice form, but she's not running missions for Cassian maybe in the way that he thought he was helping her initially. She still seems to be actively involved in the rebellion, but not in the sense that she's running errands for Luthen any longer. At least that seems to be the case. I'll have to rewatch it again and see if maybe there's some other dialogue that maybe I'm forgetting about right now. But again, mentally, she seems to be in a much more stable, much more well-rounded place than she was previously. Meanwhile, Cassian, again, he's trying to have his cake and eat it too. He's trying to have this happy life and this life with Bix. And so he's willing to sacrifice his fight against the Empire. He's willing to sacrifice his role as a burgeoning leader of the rebellion to have this relationship with Bix, and that will come to a head by the end of these 3 episodes. But it is like we talked about in that compendium, that Cassian's sort of his will to fight is sort of waning a little bit as he has his own level of personal happiness. He hasn't quite embraced the level of sacrifice that this fight requires. And that choice is going to be made for him by Bix at the end of these episodes. Meanwhile, our other relationship that we focus on in the compendium was Dedra and Cyril. And that relationship seems to be in a very different place now from where we left it a year prior in the canon. Cyril seems to be enjoying the benefits and the rewards, but he seems to also be much more aware of how much he's being manipulated and coaxed. And I also think he sort of has gained a little bit of sympathy for the plight of the people on Ghorman. He's been kept in the dark. The Empire's not telling him what's going on. Dedra hasn't been telling him what's going on, why they're there, what they're after. So I think he's begun to sympathize a little bit with the Ghorman front. And again, I'll have to go back to rewatch these episodes and see if I can corroborate that with any kind of empirical evidence. But there are moments in this episode, the way he sort of, I don't know, again, just sort of these are initial reactions where again, I don't think he's necessarily willing to sympathize fully. Like he's not going to desert and betray the Empire, but I think he feels for the Ghorman at this point, for the Ghor at this point, at least to a certain degree, because he has gotten to know them. He has kind of become part of them, but they seem to be aware of who he is. At some point, his role with the Empire, his role with the ISB seems to have been discovered. So he's on the outs with them. Again, he still tries to sympathize and or empathize with their plight to a certain degree, even though they want nothing to do with him any longer. So that's an interesting development on that front. Meanwhile, Dedra is really just trying to get this mission finished so they can go home. She has had enough of the Ghorman situation, doesn't want to be involved with it, doesn't like the tactics being deployed here, but she's the point person on this. This is going to be her. Ultimately, what's going to happen here is like the Ghorman Master will probably ultimately be laid at her feet as the commanding officer involved here. So I think in many regards, Dedra is about to become a fall person. Though, again, the Empire controls the narrative, so they're painting this whole thing as Ghor aggression against the government. So Dedra will probably be hailed as a hero, despite the fact that she knows the truth. She knows they instigated this thing. She knows that they propped up the Ghorman front to instigate the situation, to provoke this situation. But that's weighing on her. That has an effect on her. It's had an effect on her relationship with Cyril. It's had an effect on her relationship with Partagast, and her role in the ISB is now in question. Is she growing a conscience in that sense, or is she just uncomfortable with sort of manipulation that goes along with it? Obviously in season 1, Dedra portrayed herself as someone who law and order, maintained the peace, all these different things. But this seems to be out of her comfort zone. And will Ghorman ultimately affect her moving forward, or will she be able to kind of swallow us down and just plow ahead as an agent of the Empire? That remains to be seen. But obviously Ghorman is the powder keg that much of these 3 episodes are centered around. And of course, it all comes to a head. The Empire initiates their plans because they need that material that's in the surface of the planet that's going to make the planet inhabitable. Like the Ghor are going to be either killed or displaced at this point, because the Empire needs that resource for the Death Star, and there is no stopping them. So they provoke this situation, and it is it's haunting, it's sad, it's horrific. Is it maybe as brutal as Moff Tarkin landing his ship and killing a bunch of people as the original Ghorman massacre? Maybe not, but seeing it, having it crystallized for us, and doing it in a way that we are familiar with as far as Andor goes, by keeping it very, very real, by keeping it very, very plausible and comparable to things in our own reality, which is the greatest gift that Andor gives us, is that we can extrapolate and find ways to compare and contrast this to our own world, which is, in my opinion, one of the greatest things that science fiction can do. Now, that being said, I think we're all aware that Star Wars is probably more space fantasy than science fiction, but it's nice when we can kind of cross those streams, if you will, and get some Star Wars that has resonance in our world. And Lucas always intended that. That was always the intent with the original trilogy, was to talk about anti-government, anti-colonialism, anti-tyranny, all these things. And colonialism, that seems like a modern thing. I don't want to put that in there. Scratch that out. Forget that one. But again, standing up to tyranny, but in a very fun and fanciful manner. So politics has always been a part of Star Wars. We're just getting into the nitty gritty of it here in Andor, and it's very exciting. It's very thrilling, and particularly in the 3rd episode of this arc, the politics of it and the resonance in our world, off the charts. But I want to stay focused on Ghorman a little bit longer, because it's this incredibly sad, incredibly haunting sequence of events, where the people of Ghorman come into the plaza, and they're protesting and they're chanting, and it seems like it's very aggressive. And then there's this beautiful moment where they just start singing the Ghor national anthem, and it's haunting, it's chilling, it's sad. And then as the Empire moves out, and they enact their plan by killing an Imperial soldier, and painting the Ghor as the aggressors, kicking off this sequence of events. Meanwhile, Andor's on the planet. Wilman's on the planet. Wilman has developed a relationship with the Ghorman Front. He has a person he cares for in the Ghorman Front. And they have an opportunity to kill Dedra. They recognize Dedra as the instigator of everything that happened on Ferrix. And so, against orders from the Rebel Alliance, Cassian goes to Ghor to eliminate Dedra Marrow for what she did to Ghor. For what she did on Ferrix. And again, it leads to these really great moments and some really great recalls from the previous arc. The bellhop who took him to his room when he was undercover, first investigating the Ghorman Front in the 2nd arc of this season, now works at the front desk and low-key recognizes him because, again, Cassian went against what he was supposed to do, but he engaged. He made himself memorable and distinct because he asked questions. He wanted to know about the original Ghorman massacre. And so this bellhop, who's now a front desk person, remembers him and does his best to really understands that Cassian is there as sort of a rebel element, and tries to obscure that from his coworkers. And when the next day, again, Cassian's trying to take that shot at Dedra. It's not going well. But when Cassian realizes what the Empire is doing, opening up the plaza, inviting people into protest, he knows it's a trap. He knows it's not going to go well. And this is the moment that the Empire's been waiting for. So when he goes back to the front desk and he sees that bellhop again, and the bellhop's like, don't worry, nothing's been logged, where no one's going to know you were here, blah, blah, blah. And Cassian says, I hope you make it through this. Something along those lines. I hope you make it through this. I hope you come out of this okay. And when that bellhop drops the rebellions are built on hope line, I got choked up. I did. I was like, oh, there it is. So that, because that has resonance, right? When Jin says that later on in Rogue One, that's going to connect with him in a way. It's going to be impactful for him. He's going to think of this moment. So we're adding more depth to his character for Rogue One, so that when Jin says these things, there is an emotional connection for Cassian. It's fascinating. I thought it was really well done. It's not played up like this big moment. It's just there, and it exists, and it's there to, again, give us this connection, provide us with more emotional depth, and give Cassian sort of like this kind of like anchor moment. So Cassian is there. He gets in the mix. He is part of the Ghorman massacre in a sense. He's there trying to stop Imperial activity. He's shooting stormtroopers when he can. He's trying to protect the people as much as he can, but it's not going well. The Empire deploys KX security droids. Yes, you heard me correctly. And it just keeps escalating and getting worse and worse and worse. And meanwhile, Cyril and Dedra have had a big altercation as everything begins to come to a head on Ghorman. And they're on the outs. And Cyril's now wandering around the plaza in the midst of this festering rebellion that the Empire is about to instigate. And as people are dying around him, Empire, Ghorman alike, Gore alike, he finally sees Cassian. And we finally get the confrontation between these two characters that has been teased out since the first season. And it's great. And it's like Cyril is a savage in this confrontation. He's taking out all his anger, all his frustration. And Cassian is just like, I don't know what to do with this guy. Like, what's going on here? And that's when he drops the devastating line, like, who are you? And Cyril has the drop on him. Cyril has him dead to rights when one of the Ghorman front, who Cyril betrayed basically, gets the drop on him and shoots him in the side of the head and then puts him down. And Cassian has no idea who this guy is, who's been hunting him, who's been pursuing him, who put him on the Imperial radar so long ago. It's again, it sort of speaks to just how big the galaxy is, and just because you are focused and fostered and focused. We'll just stick with focused on one thing. It doesn't mean that person has any sense of who you are, or that you've been after them for some indiscriminate amount of time. It's like it reminded me of season one. The fact that all these people in the Empire are looking for access. They're looking for his agents. They're looking for the people responsible for Aldhani. And they had Andor in their custody, and they had no idea who he was. They had no idea what he was responsible for. Sort of like the levels of bureaucracy, which was a big element, I think, in the first season of Andor, was sort of exploring the complexities and the layers of bureaucracy that the Empire has to it. Now that we know about those layers, we sort of are just in going through quick bursts of why that bureaucracy is bad and all these different elements of it. Sorry, that didn't make a ton of sense, but bear with me. We'll dive more deeply into these episodes after the show concludes, I promise. But again, a great moment that brings that sort of conflict between those characters to a head, even though Cassian had no clue. He was in a conflict with Cyril Karn. So that brings one of these relationships to a head. And so Willman, Cassian, Drina, a couple other people that we've met through the course of these episodes, they survive Ghorman. And again, it's haunting, it's sad, it's harrowing. The KX droids, one of them getting smashed by a tank by one of the members of the Ghorman front, and Cassian's like, hey, you know what? I might have an idea for that KX droid. Let's put it on my ship. So, yeah, that's the beginning. K2SO coming soon to Andor season 2. Get ready, friends. Get ready. And we move into the third episode, the fallout of Ghorman, and you're like, whoa, this can't possibly top what we just saw, like as far as action goes and as far as like tension and drama. Not so fast, my friends. This one might even be more tense and have more drama to it, as Mon Mothma yearns to speak out to the Senate, to speak out against what happened on Ghorman, and to call out Palpatine directly. But this is a Senate with no teeth. This is a Senate that is in the pocket of Palpatine and all of his sycophants, and they're praising what happened on Ghorman, how it was Imperial heroes who died. It was these amazing Imperial people who sacrificed and were the victims of insurgency and rebellion. So they're controlling the narrative. They're rewriting what actually happened on Ghorman because it suits the narrative that the Empire needs to justify what they're going to do on Ghorman. So with the help of Bail Organa, who is unwilling to leave the Senate, who was willing to sort of sacrifice himself by staying there as sort of a living hostage of the old Republic, he finds a way to give Senator Mon Mothma the time that she needs to call out the Emperor, to call out the Empire. And the ISB trying to shut it down, trying to stop it all from happening. And they can't, because Luthen's 2 steps ahead and making sure that her broadcast will go out, her voice will be heard. And again, we've talked about it a little bit ago. One of the reasons why this show excels, in my opinion, is because we can make those connections to our world, to our time. And I don't want to go down a political wormhole of what's going on in the United States right now. But I would like to think that we can at least all acknowledge the fact that the truth has become sort of a quote unquote, the truth has sort of become like a dubious thing. It's sort of subject to many points of view and input. So when Mon Mothma's talking about those things in her speech, you can't help but connect to it. And again, your political alliances aside, I think we can all agree that hits, that resonates. Like that should stir something in all of us, because it's happening, in all around the world. We are seeing more and more examples of people in power controlling narratives and deciding what actually is truth and what isn't. And it's scary and it's terrifying. And Star Wars is sort of, again, connecting with that in a way that usually it's a little bit more obtuse about. But Tony Gilroy and his team of writers and directors and actors, they are commentating on something in Star Wars again, and like it's not like they made up the Ghorman massacre. It's not like they made up Mon Mothma's. These things are going to happen. These things are part of the canon. We just got to kind of like have it conceptualized, right? Like we knew like a little bits of Mon's speech from Rebels, but Tony Gilroy takes it to a whole new level, because now we have a new iteration of the Ghorman massacre, and we see what's going on in the Imperial Senate, and we see the sort of cult-like following and sycophants that now occupy the Imperial Senate to further Palpatine's agendas, and it's all scary and it's all terrifying, and it's kind of real world like, and so her speech hits, and it hits hard, friends. And then of course we get Cassian being the one to bring Mon safely out of the Senate building, to get her past all of the ISB agents that are trying to detain her and arrest her and probably execute her, because again, Luthen brings him in to do this because he knows that if Mon's caught, and that Bail Organa's camp is compromised, that if Mon is captured and arrested, she's probably going to break, she's probably going to spill the beans, and everything comes crashing down around them. Because Mon knows everything, right? And it's not just about Luthen and Cassian and Clea. Mon knows about Yavin and everything going on there as well. So she cannot be captured. So Luthen brings in Cassian to get her out. And as we see, the ISB, one step ahead, they have implanted someone in Bail Organa's team. So Cassian has to outsmart them as well. I love the stuff with Erskine. I love the reveal that Erskine's been working for Luthen. I get that it's a betrayal for Mon, but obviously he has always been loyal to her. But he thought in order to protect her best, he needed to be sided with Luthen at the same time. So it's an interesting thing. I wish we could delve a little bit more deeply into that relationship and that history. But again, I love that it's in the show. I love that it exists. And again, Cassian taking Mon out, her sort of her horror at seeing the things that have to happen for this rebellion to take place. Like, she's watched Cassian gun down 2 people in their escape attempt, and it horrifies her. It shocks her to her core. She's been a passive element of the rebellion thus far. And now she's in the mix, and she's seeing just how bloody it gets firsthand. And it's, again, out of her comfort zone. It's not her cup of tea, if you will. But to this point, she's been able to keep her hands clean. And there's many great moments for Genevieve O'Reilly in this sequence of episodes. The speech obviously being the highlight, but her conversation with Luthen is fascinating as well. As there's many layers of that onion to peel apart. But again, watching her reaction to Cassian's actions, stunning. And then the quiet moment they have at the end in the old room that Cassian and Bix were staying in, the safe house. Again, more fascinating elements of things. And again, it's this show with this amazing cast, and now you finally, halfway through this season, you bring together 2 of your biggest stars in Genevieve O'Reilly and Diego Luna to share a scene together, which hasn't happened since Rogue One. So, I mean, that's pretty fascinating on many, many levels. And of course, Cassian can't be the one to bring her to Yavin. It has to be Gold Squadron. It has to be, Hera and everybody on Rebels. Like, we've seen how this kind of plays out through that end of things. And that's the nice way to remind us that there's sort of like our layers of the rebellion happening here too. Like, there's Luthen and Clea and Cassian, and they're down in the dirt. They are the spies and the assassins and the sort of ugly part of the rebellion, while Leia and Hera and Ezra and those guys sort of the more high end, the more a poster friendly version of the rebellion, because they seem to be acting with more nobility, I suppose. And so again, I like this reminder that rebellions aren't easy. They aren't pretty. They aren't neat. They aren't clean. There have to be guys down in the dirt doing the hard stuff, making the hard choices, making the morally questionable choices for the greater good. The greater good. Yes, I know. I said it. Sorry. Again, that is a strength of this show. It's fascinating that they're exploring it. Will we ever get another show like this ever again? I tend to think not. So let's embrace this. Let's soak it in now. It's incredible stuff. And then as we get back to the Yavin storyline, once Cassian's gotten Willman back, who's been injured escaping Ghorman, they return to Yavin, and he has one more night with Bix, and then he wakes up to find her gone because she won't let him leave the rebellion. She won't let him sacrifice everything they fought and worked for her. She knows he needs to be there. He's stepping up. He's being a leader. Draven needs him. The people of the rebellion see him as a leader, and she won't let them lose him for her. And it's this incredible sacrifice by Bix. So, will we find out Bix's ultimate fate? I don't know at this point. It seems like it's up in the air. It seems like it's possible that she's just drifted out to the outer rim, and we don't know what becomes of her. But it's interesting timing because just as Bix leaves, his love of his life, his best friend, leaves, his new one comes back online, and we get our first interactions with the newly restored, rebooted, re-wiped K2SO, and I can't wait to see them in action in our next installments, because that's where we leave this episode, as K2SO online, and Cassian pointing a gun right at his head. I am so excited to see what they do next. Alan Tudyk's one of my favorites. I loved K2SO in Rogue One. I can't wait to get more of that playful banter and dynamic that he and Diego shared on screen. I'm very, very excited to see what they do with those two in the next 3 episodes, as the march towards Rogue One begins in earnest next week, as we go right up to the days before the Battle of Yavin. Exciting stuff. These 3 episodes are so fascinating. There's so many things to pull apart. We barely scratched the surface today on this reaction episode. As I said before, we will pull these apart more fully down the road in a matter of time once the whole series has come out. But it's just been a fascinating watch. It's edge of your seat television. It's so insanely good. It's so insanely good. I can't even tell you all the words that I have in my mind to describe this series. Other than I feel very, very fortunate that it exists and we get to have it. And so, with that being said, I don't think I've rated any of the episodes of Andor season 2 thus far. But I mean, these 3 episodes, again, Chef's Kiss. They're like 10 buckets. They're so good. They're so gosh darn good. Incredible stuff. And we also get someone drops the S-bomb. Bail Organa, again, the recast of Benjamin Bratt as Bail Organa drops the S-bomb in these episodes. And that was the same S-bomb I was dropping multiple times throughout these 3 episodes. It was incredible, incredible stuff. Super, super good. Loved it. Incredible. So, and we'll wrap up the show right now with another reminder to follow us on the socials at Mando_Vision, Twitter /X and Insta, Mandovision at Blue Sky, and you can email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, and share the show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. If you're on the Apple Podcast and you're inclined to, sweet 5-star reviews. They help small independent shows like us stand out, not get lost in the shuffle. This is Mandovision Podcast. I am your host, Nargai Tom. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all the support. The members of Buckethead Nation continue to be the greatest supporters on the internet. I thank you guys so much. Go out there, be great Star Wars fans, kind, supportive, respectful, inclusive, and do your best to even tolerate the crazy shenanigans of those who aren't as enlightened as the rest of us. It's all good, my friends. We'll be back next week to talk more Andor. There may be another compendium too, as I sort of process more on these latest 3 episodes. So stay tuned. More episodes dropping into the feed all the time. We'll be back very, very soon. But in the meantime, this podcast, it only ends one way, my friends. This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way. This is the way.
I find that answer vague and unconvincing.